Very welcome to Border Traveller Podcast Episode 12. In this podcast, we examine the European Union's 2026 strategic shift toward technological sovereignty and the development of a robust AI infrastructure. The discussion is based on a new report published on europeantrends.net.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Thursday, February 19th, 2026.
The future is now, apparently.
It feels weird to say that date out loud, doesn't it? 2026.
It really does.
For so long, this year was just this vague point on a roadmap, the deadline for some net zero target, or the year a big regulation was supposed to finally kick in. But here we are.
And things are moving.
Things are moving fast. I mean, if you've been watching the wires coming out of Brussels, Paris, and Berlin over the last 3, maybe 4 weeks, the whole vibe has shifted, like remarkably so.
It's a total pivot. You know, if we were having this conversation 2 years ago, or even last year, the entire transcript would have just been about the referee.
Europe is the global referee, yeah.
That was the whole narrative. We'd be talking about the AI Act, the fines, the GDPR expansion, the, endless committees on compliance and ethics. The headline was always Europe regulates.
Right, the Brussels effect, the idea that Europe's main export is just rules and regulations.
Exactly, but you open up the EU AI Trend Report from this month, the February 2026 edition, and the word regulation is, I think, buried somewhere on page 40.
Is it really?
It's just not the lead story anymore. The headline has fundamentally changed to Europe builds.
And that right there is the tension we are unpacking today. The narrative has flipped completely. This is being called the make or break year for the European tech ecosystem.
I've heard that phrase a lot.
We spent 5 years, maybe more, digging this massive regulatory moat, the AI Act, all the safety protocols. But now the ecosystem is looking around and asking, is there anything actually valuable inside the castle?
Or did we just build a really, really expensive fence around an empty field?
That's the brutal question, isn't it?
It is. And frankly, the answer isn't clear yet, which is exactly why 2026 is so critical. We aren't just talking about policy papers today. We're talking about steel, concrete, silicon, and some very specialized code.
We're talking about actual stuff.
We're looking at the sudden explosion of these AI Gigafactories and this new geographic strategy they're calling the European AI Power Triangle.
The Power Triangle. I saw that in the briefing notes. It sounds like something out of a bad geopolitical thriller or maybe a very, very intense Eurovision entry.
It does have a dramatic flair, doesn't it? But it's actually a fairly pragmatic, a distributed network strategy. It's the realization that no single European country can go toe-to-toe with the scale of the U.S. or China.
Germany can't do it alone.
Germany can't do it. France can't do it alone. But if you connect the dots between them, maybe, just maybe, you have a fighting chance.
So we have a massive stack of sources today. We're looking at the EU AI Trend Report, obviously. But we also have these fascinating startup profiles from Paris, Berlin, and Stockholm, and some pretty heavy infrastructure reports about these new supercomputing hubs. So what's the mission for this deep dive?
The mission is to connect the physical to the digital. We need to explain how a defunct paper mill in rural Sweden, a math genius sitting in a cafe in Paris, and a factory floor in Berlin all connect to form a single survival strategy for the continent.
A survival strategy. That's a strong way to put it.
Well, I think that's what it is. It's about sovereignty and relevance in the 21st century.
Okay, let's start with the geography then, just to orient everyone.
Yeah.
This power triangle. Who are the key players here?
Okay, so it's a simplification, but it's a really useful one. Corner one is Paris. Paris is being framed as the brains.
The brains, okay.
That's where the raw mathematical talent is, and crucially, where the aggressive venture capital lives. Corner two is Berlin. Berlin is the brawn.
That makes sense for Germany.
Right. It's all about industrial application, taking the AI and bolting it onto a machine, a car, or a defense system.
And the third corner of the triangle?
That would be Stockholm. Stockholm is being positioned as the conscience.
The conscience.
It's where the trust frameworks, the safety evaluations, and the green energy infrastructure really come into play. So you've got this 3-part system.
Brains, brawn, and conscience. It sounds like we're building a synthetic human.
In a way they are. I think the goal is to build a sovereign intelligence. And that word sovereign is doing a lot of heavy lifting in all the 2026 documents. It's everywhere.
Let's dig into that. Because usually when we talk about AI, we talk about software, we talk about chatbots, agents, code. But the biggest shift in this February report is all about hardware. They're using this term AI Gigafactories. Now, when I hear Gigafactory, my brain goes straight to Elon Musk. I'm thinking of battery assembly lines in Nevada or Texas.
And that's a very deliberate branding choice. They want to evoke that same scale of industrial revolution. But you're right, an AI Gigafactory isn't manufacturing widgets. It's not rolling cars off a line. It is a massive, concentrated facility for sovereign compute.
Okay, compute. We throw that word around a lot.
Yeah.
Let's break it down. For the person who thinks compute just means, using their laptop.
Sure. Think of compute as the raw horsepower of the AI economy. It's the engine. It's the ability to process billions upon billions of calculations per second to train these massive models. For the last decade, maybe more, Europe had a dirty secret.
Which was?
If a French startup or a German research lab wanted to train a cutting-edge AI model, they couldn't just do it in a garage. They didn't have the machines, so they rented them.
For the Americans?
Almost exclusively. They went to Amazon Web Services, AWS, or Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure. They rented the horsepower, which means their proprietary data, their intellectual property, their operational stability. It was all entirely dependent on U.S. infrastructure.
So the sovereignty pivot isn't just about national pride or waving a European flag. It's about not having your on switch controlled by a foreign entity.
Precisely. I mean, just imagine a geopolitical crisis where the U.S. government decides to prioritize its own companies for server capacity, or imagine a trade war where data flows are suddenly restricted.
Your entire business could just vanish overnight.
Exactly. If you don't own the compute, you don't own your product. You're just a tenant. The gigafactories are about becoming the landlord.
And this is happening at a significant scale now. The report mentions the Euro-HPC joint undertaking. We're talking about more than 15 operational hubs already.
Over 15, yes. And these aren't just your standard data centers for hosting websites. These are AI-optimized supercomputing clusters loaded with the latest GPUs. We're seeing them pop up in Finland, Italy, Spain, and crucially, as the anchors of this power triangle.
There is one visual in the report that I absolutely love. It's the Borlänge transformation in Sweden. I think this one story just captures the entire vibe of 2026 better than any charter graph.
Oh, the Borlänge case study is fantastic. It's almost too perfect, metaphorically speaking.
Set the scene for us. Where's Borlänge?
So Borlänge is this industrial town, pretty much in central Sweden. For about 120 years, the heart and soul of that town was the Kvarnsveden paper mill, a massive facility. It churned out newsprint, magazine paper, the physical media of the 20th century.
And we all know how that story ends.
Right. Digital happened. Demand for newsprint just collapsed. The mill shut down a few years back. It was a complete tragedy for the local economy. Thousands of jobs gone.
I remember hearing that Northvolt was going to take it over.
That was the plan. For a while, Northvolt, the battery maker, was going to build a factory there, but that deal fell through. So you just had this giant, hollowed-out industrial carcass sitting there, a symbol of a bygone era.
Enter Mistral AI.
Enter the French. Mistral AI, which is based in Paris, comes in and drops a 1.3 billion euro investment plan to turn that old paper mill into a massive AI data center.
From paper pulp to neural networks. That's quite a transition.
It's poetic, right? But from an engineering standpoint, it's brilliant. Paper mills need two things in enormous quantities: massive amounts of electricity and massive amounts of cold water for cooling.
And what do AI supercomputers need?
Massive amounts of electricity and massive amounts of cooling. Exactly. The core infrastructure, the power grid connections, the water intakes, it was all already there. So now you have this facility in Sweden running on clean Swedish hydropower funded by French venture capital, training sophisticated models that were designed in Paris.
That is the power triangle in physical form. French brains, Swedish conscience, or green infrastructure in this case.
It's the perfect manifestation of the strategy, and it's backed by serious legislation. The report talks a lot about the new Cloud and AI Development Act.
Yeah, that just passed in Q1 2026. What's the main goal there?
It's targeting what they call the dependency gap. The EU looked at the numbers and realized that something like 80% of European corporate and public data was living on non-European clouds.
80%. That's a staggering number.
It's a security nightmare and an economic vulnerability. So this act is basically a huge fire hose of money. Spending on sovereign cloud, IAS is expected to double to over 10 billion euros just this year.
IaaS being infrastructure as a service.
Right. Basically, the government is saying to private investors and tech companies, if you build the plumbing, we will make sure the pipes are full of customers. And they're harmonizing the rules.
That harmonization point seems key, because historically the EU has been a fragmented mess for any tech company.
A total nightmare. I mean, the digital single market has been a dream for 20 years. 2026 is the year they are trying to force it into reality because they have no other choice. If you are a startup in Berlin, you can't afford to treat France like a foreign country anymore. You need that French capital, and you desperately need that Swedish compute power.
Okay, so the hardware is being built. The moat has stuff inside it now. Let's tour the triangle itself. We start with the brains. Paris.
Paris has done an incredible job of rebranding itself. 10 years ago, if you said Paris Tech, people might have thought of, I don't know, a fashion e-commerce site. Now, it's legitimately the Silicon Valley of Europe for foundational models.
Why Paris, though? What's the secret sauce? Is it just the food?
It's the math. It's always been the math. France has this ridiculously strong, centuries-old tradition in theoretical mathematics. I mean, just look at the number of Fields medals their mathematicians have won.
Right, from schools like École Polytechnique and ENS.
Exactly. They produce graduates who understand the deep, abstract algebra that underpins how these large models actually work. For a long time, those brilliant graduates went straight to Google DeepMind in London or OpenAI in San Francisco. That was the brain drain. Now, they're staying in the 9th arrondissement of Paris.
And the money followed them home.
The money flooded in. The French VC pool is currently the deepest in the entire EU for this kind of deep tech, and they've centralized it. The report talks about the new European Center for AI Excellence, the ECAE, which just launched in January.
And it's described as a kind of embassy. What does that mean?
That's a good word for it. It's a physical hub, a place where a promising startup from Berlin or a researcher from Stockholm can come to get FaceTime with French VCs. It's an explicit attempt to mix the ecosystem to stop it from siloing into national camps.
Let's talk about the companies, the actual players. Mistral AI is obviously the big one, the heavyweight champion. But in 2026, they look very different than they did back in, say, 2024.
They do. They've matured. In 2024, they were trying to be the open European OpenAI. It was a bit of a David versus Goliath story. But by 2026, the strategy has shifted dramatically. They realized that fighting a consumer chatbot war against GPT-5 is just a money pit you can't win.
So they pivoted.
They pivoted hard to enterprise. Their LuChat model is now laser-focused on business applications. They are the primary API provider now for European governments, for hospitals, for banks, all through their platform called La Plateforme.
It makes sense. If you are the French Ministry of Health or a German defense contractor,
Yeah.
you cannot pipe your sensitive data into a US-based model. You just can't from a legal or security standpoint.
It's a non-starter. So Mistral is selling sovereignty as a feature. They're saying, we are the high-performance, cutting-edge model that legally lives in your backyard. Your data never leaves the EU.
So sovereignty isn't just a buzzword. It's the core product.
Sovereignty is the product, but Mistral is kind of the establishment now. The cool new kid on the block that everyone's excited about is a company called H.
Just the letter H?
It stands for Holistic AI, technically. They were the buzz of late 2025. They are focusing on what's called agentic AI.
We need to define this because the word agent is a buzzword that gets abused constantly. How is what H is doing different from what Mistral does?
Okay, so a chatbot like early ChatGPT is fundamentally a conversationalist. You ask it a question, it predicts the next word, it gives you a block of text. An agent, on the other hand, is a doer. It has hands, metaphorically speaking.
So it takes actions.
It takes actions. You don't ask it to write an email about scheduling a meeting. You tell it, book the meeting with the Berlin team for next Tuesday, find a time that works for everyone, send the calendar invites, reserve the conference room, and update the project status in our CRM. It performs a multi-step task across different software.
That sounds amazing, but hasn't that been the promise for years? Why is H getting so much attention for this now?
Because it's incredibly hard to make it work reliably. If a chatbot makes a mistake, you get a weird sentence or a factual error, it's a typo. If an agent makes a mistake, it deletes the wrong database or books a flight to the wrong continent. The consequences are real.
The blast radius is much larger.
Infinitely larger. H is building the underlying action models that can navigate complex software interfaces the way a human would. They're trying to solve that reliability problem so that AI can finally do work, not just talk about work.
That's a huge swing.
Okay,
what about Poolside? I found their story fascinating.
Poolside is a great example of reverse migration. They actually started in the US, but they moved their entire headquarters to Paris.
Why?
To be close to the math talent we were just talking about. Simple as that. They are building a foundation model specifically for software engineering.
So AI that writes code. We've seen that with things like GitHub Copilot.
It's the next evolution of that. It's not just about auto-completing a line of code. The goal is an AI that understands the entire architecture of a complex code base. An AI that can debug, refactor, and manage the entire software development lifecycle. If H is building the digital office employee, Poolside is building the digital engineer that creates the tools for that employee.
And then there's a nonprofit angle with QTI.
QTI is really interesting. They are the open science lab in this ecosystem, funded by some big French billionaires, but run as a nonprofit. They released a model called Moshi late last year, and it really turned heads.
Moshi is a voice-to-voice model, right?
It is, but we need to be clear about what that means. It's not like talking to Siri or Alexa.
How is it different?
Latency and emotion. Traditional voice assistants are clunky. You speak, your speech is converted to text, that text is sent to a model. The model generates a text response, and then that text is converted back into synthetic audio. There's a noticeable delay.
Right, that awkward pause.
That pause, exactly. Moshi is end-to-end audio. It processes the sound of your voice directly and generates a response as audio. It hears your tone, it hears your hesitation, and it responds instantly. The reports say it's emotive, it can sound empathetic or excited. It rivals the best closed-source models from the US, but it's completely open source.
So it's about democratizing the next generation of interface.
That's the goal, the interface layer itself.
Okay, so Paris is clearly supplying the foundational brains and the voice. Now let's move to the second corner of the triangle. Berlin, the brawn.
If Paris is the philosophy seminar, Berlin is the factory floor. The German approach to AI is it's very German.
Practical.
Very practical. They don't care about an AI that can write poetry about sunsets. They care about efficiency, manufacturing, industrial IoT, and supply chain optimization.
The report calls this industrial and applied AI. And there's a key concept here they keep mentioning, traceability.
Yes, and if you understand traceability, you understand the German AI market.
Explain it.
Okay, imagine you are the manager of a massive chemical plant in Ludwigshafen. You install an AI system to manage the temperature and pressure valves for a volatile reaction. If that AI makes a decision to shut down a valve, for instance, you need to know why immediately.
You can't just have a black box.
You absolutely cannot have a black box neural network that just says, trust me, this is the right call. That's a safety violation. That's a multi-million euro liability nightmare waiting to happen.
So you need to be able to audit the AI's decision.
You need to see the receipts. And so the champion here, the German counterpart to Mistral, is a company called Aleph Alpha. They have built their entire business model around this concept. Their models allow for citation and traceability. The AI can point to the specific data points or rules that led to its recommendation. It's less creative than GPT, maybe, but it's infinitely more accountable.
Which is exactly what you want when you're dealing with heavy machinery.
Or defense systems.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Helsing.
This one feels really significant. Defense AI. A few years ago, you'd hear stories about European tech workers refusing to work on anything related to defense.
The geopolitical reality of the last few years has completely changed that sentiment. Helsing is now a major European player, a decacorn. They provide the software brain for many European defense systems. The report talks about them delivering real-time situational awareness.
What does that actually look like in practice on a modern battlefield?
Modern warfare is a data overload problem. You have dozens of drone feeds, constant satellite imagery, radio intercepts, sensor data from ground units. No single human commander can possibly process all of that information in real time and make an optimal decision.
It's too much noise.
It's an ocean of noise. Helsing software ingests all of it, synthesizes it, and presents a clear, actionable picture of the battlefield to the commander. It identifies threats, suggests maneuvers, manages logistics, and it's a strategic priority number one for the EU in 2026. Again, this comes back to sovereignty. You do not want your core defense software patching back to a server in Silicon Valley.
It's fascinating how that sovereignty theme links the old paper mill in Sweden directly to the battlefield. It's all about control of your own systems.
Control and continuity. And you even see it in the creative sector, which you might not expect. Look at Black Forest Labs in Berlin.
These are the creators of the FLUX model series for image generation.
Right. A lot of the core team came out of the original Stable Diffusion group. They are building what is now seen as the global benchmark for high-fidelity, controllable image generation.
How is it different from something like Midjourney?
Midjourney is fantastic, but it's very consumer-focused, very artistic, sometimes a bit whimsical and unpredictable. FLUX is being adopted by professional design houses, by automotive designers, by architects. It's built for precision and control. It's a tool for the industrial creative, if you will. You can specify exact parameters and get consistent results.
And we can't skip DeepL. I feel like everyone I know uses DeepL for translation, but we sometimes forget it's a massive German AI company.
It's the quiet giant. It really is. They started by just quietly beating Google at their own translation game, but now they've launched DeepL Write Pro, which is a much bigger play.
Is that just a fancy grammar checker like Grammarly?
It's more of a corporate voice harmonizer. Think about a big multinational company with offices in Berlin, Paris, Madrid, and Lisbon. How do you ensure that your public statements, your marketing copy, your internal memos all have a consistent tone of voice, even across 30 different languages?
That's a huge challenge.
A huge challenge. DeepL Write Pro helps manage that. But the real selling point, again, is the sovereign angle. They guarantee strict GDPR data silos. Your confidential internal memos are not being used to train their next generation model.
I'm definitely seeing a pattern emerge here. The European feature set is basically, it works really well, and we promise not to spy on you or use your data.
That is the brand. Privacy as a premium enterprise product. It's a powerful differentiator.
Okay, let's fly north for the final corner. Corner 3, Stockholm, the conscience.
Stockholm is the safe harbor. If Paris provides the aggressive frontier thinking and Berlin provides the industrial muscle, Stockholm provides the trust layer.
The big name here, according to the reports, is Silo AI, though they were acquired by the American chipmaker AMD recently.
They were, which is a huge validation of the quality of their tech, but they remain the operational backbone of Nordic AI development. They're the ones who built the Poro and Viking models.
Poro means reindeer in Finnish. I love that.
It does. And these models are crucial because they are polyglot in a very specific European way. They are trained from the ground up on low-resource European languages.
Why does that matter so much? I mean, GPT-4 speaks pretty good Swedish.
It speaks translated Swedish. There's a profound difference. Does a model trained primarily on the English-speaking internet understand the deep nuances of Finnish case law? Does it get the specific cultural context of a Norwegian HR dispute?
Probably not.
Almost certainly not. Poro and Viking are designed to ensure that European culture, law, and language aren't just flattened and steamrolled by an English-centric training run. It's a form of linguistic sovereignty.
Then there's Sana. The report describes them as building a collective memory for companies. That sounds very sci-fi.
It sounds grand, but it's actually incredibly practical. It's a knowledge management platform.
Right.
Just think about the modern corporation. Your company's actual knowledge is scattered across thousands of Slack channels, Jira tickets, Google Drive folders, random PDFs, and forgotten email threads. It's chaos.
It's a total mess.
A total mess. Sana ingests all of that unstructured data and creates a single searchable brain for the company.
So I can literally ask it a question like, what did we decide about the Q3 marketing budget for the Nordic region? And it will find the answer in a Slack thread from 6 months ago.
Exactly. And it will cite the source, so you can go look at the original conversation. The report says it's being used heavily for onboarding new employees, getting them up to speed in days instead of months.
And another interesting one from Stockholm is Lovable.
Lovable is trying to solve the talent gap. Europe has a chronic shortage of software developers. Lovable is a no-code AI platform. You describe the application you want to build in natural language.
You just talk to it.
You talk to it. You say, I need an inventory management app for my small business that tracks stock, sends low inventory alerts, and integrates with my Shopify store. And it builds the full stack application for you. It allows a product manager or a business owner to become a builder without writing a line of code.
Stockholm also hosts one of these infrastructure nodes, right? A gigafactory called Mimer.
That's right. Named after the Norse god of wisdom, which is very appropriate. Mimer is a computing hub that focuses specifically on safety-critical AI testing and validation.
Now, you mentioned earlier that these three corners aren't just operating in isolation. There's this idea of a cross-border talent corridor.
Yes, and this is maybe the most important social graph element of the whole strategy. The report calls it circular migration. This is the only way Europe can actually survive and compete.
So what does that look like for a person?
You see this new career path emerging for top-tier AI talent. You start in Paris, maybe at INRAA or another top institution to get your PhD and learn the deep foundational math. Then you move to Berlin to work at Aleph Alpha or Helsing and apply that math to a real-world industrial problem.
And then to Stockholm.
Then perhaps you move to Stockholm to work with the AI Sweden consortium on the safety protocols and ethical alignment of the very system you helped build in Berlin.
So the career path itself literally stitches the continent's tech hubs together.
It has to. Because if that talented person just stays in Paris or just stays in Berlin, the ecosystem fragments back into national champions. But if they circulate, then Europe starts to function like one giant distributed Silicon Valley.
But, and there was always a but with Europe, this entire ecosystem has to operate under a mountain of rules. We have to talk about the regulatory landscape.
The favorite European pastime, yes.
It's February 2026.
Right.
The EU AI Act is fully live now. We have active enforced bans.
We do. Social scoring is now completely banned. The idea that a government could rate your trustworthiness based on your shopping habits or social media posts, that's illegal. The use of real-time biometric surveillance in public spaces is also heavily restricted. These are hard lines in the sand.
But the report mentions a lot of fiction. A lot of it.
Tons of it. The problem is that the European Commission missed some of its own deadlines. They were supposed to release clear technical guidelines for what constitutes a high-risk system months ago. They didn't.
So you have startups who are trying to comply, but they don't know what to comply with.
Exactly. You have a startup in Berlin that has raised 20 million euro. They genuinely want to follow the rules, but the final rules technically haven't been written down yet. It's causing a huge amount of anxiety and legal uncertainty.
And the response to this mess is something called the digital omnibus.
The omnibus is basically the bureaucracy trying to fix the bureaucracy it created. The core problem it's trying to solve is what startups were calling double counting.
What's double counting?
Imagine you are a health tech startup. You use AI to scan medical x-rays for early signs of disease. So first, you have to comply with the AI Act because your system is high risk. Then, because you handle patient data, you have to comply with GDPR. And because you use cloud storage for the images, you have to comply with the Data Act.
So you were getting hit by 3 different regulators for the same basic action.
Right. And having to submit 3 different sets of compliance paperwork, often with conflicting requirements, it's paralyzing. It burns cash that should be going to buying GPUs and hiring engineers. The omnibus is trying to streamline all of this into a single compliance pipeline. The idea is, tell us what you're doing once, and you'll satisfy all 3 acts.
If they can pull that off?
If they can pull it off, it could unlock the entire market for small and medium-sized enterprises. If they can't, Europe just remains a paperwork trap.
Okay, so we have the power triangle, we have the new infrastructure, and we have the rules of the road. Now let's zoom out. The report uses this 3 miles framework to describe the global AI order. I found this incredibly helpful to visualize where Europe stands in 2026.
It's the best mental model I've seen for the current state of play. It argues that the world has sort of settled into a global division of labor when it comes to AI.
Let's walk through the 3 aisles. First up, the U.S. is the first mile.
The U.S. is the frontier. Their goal is pure, unadulterated innovation and, of course, profit. Their philosophy is the classic Silicon Valley motto: move fast, break things.
And they are still crushing everyone on the raw numbers.
Oh, it's not even close. The latest figures show the U.S. has something like 17 times the raw compute capacity of Europe. 17x. They dominate venture capital. Over $100 billion was invested in AI in 2024 alone. The big breakthroughs in pure reasoning, the next-gen models like GPT-5, Claude 4.5, those are still happening in San Francisco and Redmond. They are the explorers, pushing the absolute boundary of what's possible.
Then there's China. They are the last mile.
China is all about efficiency and mass scale. Their philosophy is apply fast, scale cheap. The report uses a great analogy. It calls it the Android model of AI.
Meaning?
If the U.S. is building the iPhone, a premium, proprietary, expensive, closed ecosystem, China is building the Android ecosystem. They are taking powerful open source models, forking them and embedding them into hardware faster and cheaper than anyone else on the planet.
So this is robotics manufacturing.
Robotics, autonomous vehicles, smart city infrastructure, consumer electronics. They're winning the physical integration game. They're focused on getting AI out of the data center and into the real world at massive scale.
And that leaves Europe, the final mile, the safe mile.
Europe has carved out its niche as the safe mile. The goal here is sovereignty and trust. And the philosophy is build right, protect users.
Now let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Is safety actually a compelling product? Or is that just what you tell yourself when you know you're losing the race for raw performance?
That is the multi-trillion-euro question, isn't it? A skeptic would absolutely say, nobody cares about your safety features if the product is 10% dumber or slower than the competition. But the counter-argument is, who is your customer?
Right.
If your customer is a teenager who wants to make funny memes, they are going to use the most powerful, unrestricted US model, no question. But if your customer is Airbus designing a jet wing, or Alliance Insurance underwriting a new policy, or the UK's National Health Service diagnosing patients,
They have a different set of priorities.
they cannot risk a model hallucinating or leaking proprietary data. They need the guarantees of the safe mile. Europe is betting its entire strategy on the idea that the B2B enterprise market values trust, compliance, and reliability over raw, unchecked speed.
But there is still a glaring hole in this strategy, which the report acknowledges: the compute gap.
It's massive. Even with the Borlänge mill and the other gigafactories coming online, we are catching up from a mile behind. The U.S. lead in raw compute is just vast.
So what's the pivot? If you know you can't outcompute Google or Microsoft, what do you do?
You don't try to beat them at their own game. It's asymmetrical warfare. You pivot to areas where raw compute is less of an advantage. The two big bets are edge AI and industrial AI.
Edge AI means running the model on the device itself, not in the cloud.
Right. On the phone, in the car, on the factory robot. You don't need a massive data center for that. You need highly efficient, optimized, small models. And European researchers are actually very good at that. And then industrial AI, let's not forget, Europe still makes things. We have Siemens, Bosch, Mercedes, Schneider Electric. The bet is that the real long-term value isn't in the chatbot that can talk about building a car. The value is in the AI that helps the machine actually build a better car.
So 2026. Make or break. It really feels like it.
This is the year. All the pieces are on the board. We have the power triangle strategy. We have the digital omnibus trying to clear the regulatory sludge. But the execution risk is just huge. Can these countries actually work together in a cohesive way? Can the French VCs really share their toys with the German engineers? Can the Swedish infrastructure really scale fast enough to meet demand?
It feels like a massive continent-wide experiment. Can you actually build a world-class tech ecosystem that's based on values, privacy, safety, green energy, rather than just on pure, unrestrained capitalism and speed?
We are about to find out.
To wrap this all up, I want to go back to that powerful image of the paper mill. We've traced this whole journey from a snowy, deindustrialized site in Sweden to the high-concept mathematical labs of Paris and all the way to the defense headquarters and factory floors in Berlin.
It's the journey from being a rule maker to becoming a sovereign builder.
Exactly. And here is the thought I want to leave everyone with. We've built the safe harbor, we've conceptualized the power triangle, but we are living in a world where the U.S. is sprinting, full throttle, towards superintelligence machines that could be smarter than us. And at the same time, China is sprinting toward mass automation robots and autonomous systems everywhere. In that global context, is safety enough of a product to sell? Or is Europe, at the end of the day, building the world's most sophisticated, beautiful, and ethical library while everyone else is building rocket ships?
It's a haunting image. And a library is a wonderful, essential place. It preserves civilization, but it doesn't get you to Mars. Then again, looking at how some of those rocket ships are being built, maybe you don't want to be on the first one if you know the safety checks were skipped.
A fascinating and frankly, pretty stressful dilemma. We've put the map of the power triangle in the show notes. I'd really encourage you to take a look. It helps visualize how all these different pieces connect.
It's worth a deep dive of its own, really.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one to see if Europe actually manages to pull this off.
See you then.
Bye, everyone.